Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about every NBA team in history that blew a 3-1 series lead in the playoffs. I don't think I need to explain it any further, so let's get right into it. There are a total of 11 teams that blew a 3-1 lead, and I'm going to start in chronological order from the beginning. Let's begin. At number 1, the first team ever to blow a 3-1 series lead, the 1968 Philadelphia 76ers. In the 1968 Eastern Conference Finals, which was actually called the Eastern Division Finals back then, the Sixers were up 3-1 over the Boston Celtics, but then they lost the next 3 games and the series. There was also a total of just 8 teams in the playoffs during this time. This series was a showdown between 2 all-time greats in Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. Although both of them were a bit older by then, in their mid-30s, but the Celtics-Sixers rivalry was still going on strong. Russell was still a great defender, but his offensive game wasn't anywhere near good enough to carry the team on that end. The main Celtics players who led the comeback were John Havlicek and Sam Jones, who almost averaged a combined 50 points between them in the series, including a 37-point outburst by Jones in a crucial Game 5 victory for the Celtics. Then the Celtics went on to the finals and defeated the Lakers to win their 10th NBA championship. Number 2, the 1970 Phoenix Suns. This series between the Suns and Lakers was pretty shocking from beginning to end. Unlike the previous series between the Celtics and Sixers, the Suns this year were the 3rd youngest team in the league, and heavy underdogs. So the fact that they even got a 3-1 lead in the first place was really surprising. Led by Connie Hawkins and Gail Goodrich, the Suns won 3 of the first 4 games by 10 or more points, against a Lakers team that consisted of guys like Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and Elgin Baylor, some of the greatest players of all time. Unfortunately, the Suns couldn't keep up the dominant play, as the Lakers came back to win the series, which included a 35-point Game 7 win that sent a statement to the young Suns team. Number 3, it happened a long 9 years later, the 1979 San Antonio Spurs. They blew a 3-1 lead to the Washington Bullets in the Eastern Conference Finals. And yes, I did say Eastern. The Spurs were actually in the East back then. I don't really think it's fair to say that the Spurs choked away the series. It was a close series throughout, with 4 games being decided by 10 points or less. The main reason why the Spurs jumped out to a 3-1 lead was because of George Gervin playing at a ridiculous level, which was unsustainable throughout a 7-game series. Although they lost, Gervin averaged 31 points per game for the series, but he couldn't overcome the balanced attack of the Bullets, who had 6 players average double digits in scoring. Game 7 of this series was also one of the most controversial playoff games in history, with the Spurs saying that they got screwed by the refs since 7 fouls were called on them in the last 4 minutes of the game. However, it was still a great comeback by the Bullets, and they deserve a lot of credit for surviving George Gervin's onslaught. At number 4, the 1981 Philadelphia 76ers. Once again, the Sixers faced the Celtics in the conference finals, and once again the Sixers blow a 3-1 lead to lose the series. This time though, the Sixers were led by Dr. J, Andrew Toney, and Chocolate Thunder Daryl Dawkins. They had a well-balanced team and actually beat the Celtics in the previous year. This series was probably the most competitive one on this list. Both teams finished the season with a 62-20 record, which tied for the best record in the league. The last 3 games in the series were all decided by one single possession, with Game 5 being 111-109, Game 6 100-98, and Game 7 91-90. And Larry Bird would not be denied this time, as he sparked the Celtics with 32 points in Game 5, and the momentum just carried on from there. This series is also arguably the greatest series of all time, due to a combination of things: the bad blood between the teams, the battle between 2 iconic players in Dr. J and Larry Bird, and above all else, just fantastic basketball. At number 5, the 1995 Phoenix Suns. This series was noteworthy for a few reasons. First off, in the playoffs the year before in 1994, the Suns were up 2-0 over the Rockets and ended up losing that series as well. Secondly, this was the year when the Rockets became the lowest seed in history to win an NBA title, so they were definitely no ordinary team. these two teams were always evenly matched, so it wasn't that much of a surprise that the Suns ended up losing after being up 3-1. Charles Barkley and Kevin Johnson played as well as they could have, but they just could not stop Hakeem Olajuwon. Actually, Hakeem played out of his mind throughout this entire playoff run. Some would argue that this was the greatest carry job to a championship by a single player, ever. In the closing seconds of Game 7, Rockets small forward Mario Elie hit the game-winning three-point shot to win the series, which is now known as the Kiss of Death. Number 6, the 1997 New York Knicks. In the 90s, a bunch of new rivalries started to take shape, and one of the biggest ones was between the New York Knicks and Miami Heat. Out of every other series on this list, this one was definitely the craziest and most controversial. It was a slugfest between two evenly matched teams, as neither team scored 90 points in the first 3 games. The Knicks managed to somehow grind their way to a 3-1 lead, but Game 5 is where it all went wrong. It first started with an altercation between Heat power forward PJ Brown and Knicks guard Charlie Ward, when Brown literally picked him up and flipped Ward upside down onto the floor. This thing led to a huge brawl and, not surprisingly, a bunch of suspensions. All 4 of the Knicks' best players, Patrick Ewing, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston, and John Starks, were suspended for 1 game each. It didn't really help that the league staggered their suspensions, so the Knicks were shorthanded in both Game 7 and Game 6. The Heat took full advantage of this opportunity to win the next 2 games and close out the series. Number 7, the 2003 Orlando Magic. Personally, I have a soft spot in my heart for this team. Tracy McGrady is one of my favorite players ever, and I loved watching him while growing up. So for me, it was really upsetting to see the Magic lose after being up 3-1. What's even more upsetting is that this was the first year where they changed the first round to be best of 7 instead of best of 5. In every year before this one, the Magic would have went to the second round already if they won 3 games. Obviously, this wasn't the case, and after going up 3-1, T-Mac said his most infamous quote, "It feels good to get in the second round." We all know what happened afterwards. The suffocating team defense of the Detroit Pistons, led by Ben Wallace and rookie Tayshaun Prince, slowed down McGrady for the rest of the series, and they came back to win the next 3 games. The main problem for the Orlando Magic was that they were literally a one-man wrecking machine. Besides McGrady, I doubt anybody remembers any other player on that team. The fact that they were up 3-1 in the first place against the Pistons was a miracle by itself. Number 8, the 2006 Los Angeles Lakers. Kobe Bryant just came off the best season of his career, averaging over 35 points per game. Their first round matchup against the Suns went as well as they could have hoped for, which included a last-second game winner by Kobe to put the Lakers up 3-1. Although the Suns were still a great team with 2-time MVP Steve Nash, they were still missing Amari Stoudemire, their other superstar, due to a knee injury. And also, they weren't really that good defensively at all. However, they were able to run the Lakers out of the building in the next 3 games with their super fast-paced offense, scoring an average of 120 points in games 5 to 7. This also included a clutch 3-pointer by Tim Thomas in Game 6 that saved them. Similar to the 2003 Magic, the 2006 Lakers were also heavily reliant on Kobe. Lamar Odom was also pretty good in this series, but when 2 of your starters are Kwame Brown and Smush Parker, you're gonna have a bad time. Number 9, the 2015 Los Angeles Clippers. For a while there, it looked like it was gonna be the Clippers' year. They just defeated the defending champion Spurs in one of the best first-round matchups in history. And then they built a 3-1 lead over the Rockets in the second round. They even had a 13-point lead entering the 4th quarter of Game 6, ready to close out the series and just get it over with. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were about to finally make the conference finals for the first time in their careers. But then everything just went wrong. The Rockets somehow mounted an incredible 4th quarter comeback, led by Josh Smith? Yup. Smith unleashed the 3-point barrage and the rest of the team just followed his lead. They outscored the Clippers 40-15 in the fourth quarter of Game 6, with James Harden sitting on the bench watching. Then the Rockets went back home and beat the Clippers in Game 7. Was there anything the Clippers could have done to prevent this from happening? Probably. But many people believe that they were the better team at the time. They just couldn't get it done in the big moments, which was the problem. Number 10, the 2016 Oklahoma City Thunder. With the Golden State Warriors getting all of the attention that year, the Thunder going up 3-1 over them was a huge deal. A team that won 73 games in the regular season with the unanimous MVP, losing to a 55-win team in the conference finals? That would have sent the basketball world into a frenzy. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The Thunder had many chances to close out the series, especially in Game 6, but Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant struggled at the end of the game, committing a bunch of turnovers and shooting a combined 20 for 58 from the field, which includes 1 for 13 on three-pointers. The result of this series also had a major impact on the NBA landscape later on. As you guys already know, Durant ended up leaving OKC to join the Warriors, the team who just beat him. And then the rest of the story is history. And finally, at number 11, you already know, the most recent team that blew a 3-1 lead, the Golden State Warriors in the 2016 NBA Finals. After coming off a huge victory in the Western Conference Finals over OKC, the Warriors put themselves in a position to close out the finals and win back-to-back NBA titles. After Cleveland was down 3-1, LeBron James woke up and showed the world that he's on a mission to become the greatest of all time. In Game 5 and 6, he had back-to-back 41-point games while being on the brink of elimination. And then in the deciding Game 7, it took a total team effort for the Cavs to win. The Warriors could not overcome Kyrie Irving's late-game three-point shot along with LeBron's chase-down block on Andre Iguodala. And Cleveland finally won their first sports championship in over 50 years. And that's all guys, thanks for watching, I hope you guys enjoyed the video.